Deadpool and Wolverine shoots for the big chimichanga, the Oscars. The Last of Us Season 2 trailer breaks our hearts. A Batman villains film may be on the way. Plus, we may be getting a Robins movie. Man, DC, just pumping them out. What universe is all at all? Okay, all that and more right after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name is Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today, we have Haley Hobbs. What's going on, Haley Hobbs?
Oh, hello. The great return. Whether you miss me or not, I'm here.
We definitely missed you.
We did.
We did. Of course we did. Yeah, and J. Scotty St. Clair.
What's happening? It's October, but it's 90 degrees in my area for some reason. So what's going on? What's wrong with the world?
Oh yeah, we're getting it's getting really cold here because of the hurricane that came through. Everything just like temperature dropped like 20 degrees overnight. And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, over here in the holler, it was a crisp 72 degrees and overcast, and so we're loving it over here. Doing
Good.
Great. No
Good,
more
I'm
of this
glad to hear
90
it.
degrees nonsense.
Absolutely. Well, starting the show, we like to read our 5-star review for the week. We got a 5-star review from Meteor IXI. They say, hey, Multiverse crew, first time, long time. If you know, you know. I love you all equally, so won't be shouting anyone specific, and I do follow you each on your specific respective podcasts. Multiverse News is a convenient one-stop shop for all things geek culture and then some. I appreciate everything you guys do, and I will be sure to hop on a Patreon soon. P.S. Can I support you through a free Twitch sub? Well, we are part of the Stranded Panda podcast network, and there is a Twitch, twitch.tv/strandedpandatv. So if you free sub there, I think we get $2 or something. So that would be wonderful. Thank you. Yes. Anyone who wants to throw us a free $2, if you have a Prime account, you can sub for free. Pretty great. But that does not go specifically to this show. It just goes to the network, and we spend that on like marketing stuff for the whole network normally. So yeah. So kinda.
Well, you support Haley with Hate Watch. That takes place on the Stranded Panda Twitch.
Ash and I killing
right.
it over there on Hate Watch.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you for writing in, Meteor. Really appreciate
Otherwise,
you.
a very diplomatic review that we appreciate.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't. I mean, I'm not going to discourage shouting out specific people because I think that's really fun, but it did start a week's worth of like responses, which I thought was fun. But
just wait, it's
an
coming
all-star
back.
listening to everybody's podcast.
Scotty's just being humble because he was shouted out clearly the most of the four of us. I mean, it was
As we told them
it was a
to.
parade. It might as well have been a parade. And
That's true.
If you scroll
was a
through those
call to
5-star
action.
comments, it's just Scotty's all over them.
They did as they were told.
Oh yeah, we asked for it. I mean, we specifically said like gas up Scotty, and they delivered.
yeah, but they were all genuine. I never felt
for sure
hint of inauthenticity from those.
Never.
All right, up first, Marvel Studios is truly going all in on their first feature film this year, Deadpool and Wolverine. According to Variety, the studio plans to push for acknowledgment during awards season, submitting for the Golden Globes, SAG Awards, Critics' Choice, and even the Oscars. It's Hugh Jackman's performance as Wolverine that is driving the decisions, as the studio plans to position the actor for the awards in the supporting actor category. Among other categories, the box office buster will likely find a spot in the Golden Globes' new category of cinematic and box office achievement. If Hugh Jackman is going to do this until he's 90, is this award season push sensible?
Sensible, questionable in my opinion, and I do want to provide the caveat that I loved Deadpool and Wolverine. I love that movie. Such a breath of fresh air, such a great summer blockbuster, such a swan song for the Fox universe characters, and it was great to have Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. And I was one of those people that was a little bit on the fence. I was like, hey, do we really need to bring this guy back after Logan? And I was happy to be wrong. It was such a great performance from him. He really lended the movie a lot of heart that it needed. That being said, you got to love these headlines, because when I saw the headline, I couldn't help but laugh and do a little bit of a facepalm. Like, I love Marvel movies. Marvel movies are some of my favorite movies every year. Superhero movies and genre films are some of my favorite every single year. But whenever I go to make my top 10 list and, think about awards contenders and stuff like that, I do have to admit that typically MCU movies are not at the number one spot for me. And Deadpool would fall in a similar category. It's going to make my top 10, top 5, possibly. But as far as awards go, especially with the Oscars, I think it is, worthy of some technical awards. But that's it. From the acting side of things, SAG seems a little more appropriate. Golden Globes is a possibility. But I got to kind of wonder where this is coming from. I don't think it's coming from Hugh Jackman. I don't know if it's coming from Sean Levy, so that kind of leaves, one culprit, and that's Ryan Reynolds. And, I love him as Wolverine, but we've talked a lot about how he's kind of, he's got his fingers in so many different things, and he's really become more of a brand than just an A-list actor. And I think the clout might be getting a little bit to his head. Again, I don't know if it can't be him alone. There have to be other people that co-sign on this as well. Kevin Feige's probably in the mix there as well. It's not the first time that Marvel movies have been up for awards like, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actor, even Best Picture, where I'm not going to say anything bad about Wakanda Forever, but I was surprised that it went the distance in terms of getting a nomination for Best Picture. So I wouldn't say that about all comic book movies, though, in general. Like, I look back to 2019 when Joaquin Phoenix won the Oscar for Joker, well-deserved. Or even thinking about Hugh Jackman here, if they wanted to nominate him for a Logan performance, I would have done it in 2017 for Logan. So, I'll be interested to hear what everybody else thinks. Hopefully I'm not the negative, the sole negative opinion here, but we'll see.
Jay Scotty, you just hate comic book movies. You just hate them. You just hate them all.
You got me.
You don't think they're real art.
What a strong bias take you have.
Now do 5-star reviews about how negative Jay Scott is.
Yeah.
Well, there's being negative, and then there's being realistic, and you're being realistic. I mean, because I started thinking when I saw this, because it caught me off guard too. I was like, all right, it can't seriously be thinking that this performance, and again, this is not a knock to Hugh Jackman, but you can't, when you're talking about the Oscars, you're talking about a different type of movie, and you're talking about the Academy, and they vote for specific things, and they don't vote for specific things, and when you're thinking about who you're going to put up, you have to take all that into contention. Again, you're not judging a movie, it's just a Marvel movie is not made with the intention of trying to win an Oscar. It's just not its goal. It's got different goals. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's not making the genre better or whatever. It's just, it's surprising to see that kind of idea thrown out there as a push, because I went and looked like 2025 Oscar Best Supporting Actor predictions and tried to find some lists, and you got to scroll pretty far down to find Hugh Jackman, even if he's not on there at all. You've got a lot of lists that have 20, 25, 30 people laid out, and he's not even on that list at all. And so it's one thing to be negative and all of that, but we're not doing that. It's just realistically, you have to remember what the Oscars are. You have to remember how these awards typically fall. And I commend them, I guess, on some level for making the campaign. I mean, Oscar campaigns are always this like really bizarre sideshow in Hollywood where you host parties and you invite people out to try to drum up support for a movie. We really saw Barbie and Oppenheimer do it like just to the max level that they could do it last year in their own Oscar campaigns. And it's just how far will that go, right, with Deadpool and Wolverine? Is this a feeler to kind of be like, what's the interest level? Like, what do people talk about when they hear this? Or is this a legit sort of, no, we're not throwing out a feeler, or we're really going for it? And if so, what does that campaign look like? So again, we all love Hugh Jackman on this podcast. We all loved Deadpool and Wolverine on this podcast. But I really can't imagine a world where there's a serious Hugh Jackman contention for Best Supporting Actor, just based on what the Oscars are and how those awards typically are given out.
I agree. I think that, I feel like it might be a misguided attempt. Like you said, I think it's not Hugh Jackman pushing for this. It might be a misguided attempt on the studios or Ryan Reynolds' part of being like, hey, Hugh, you can get awards here too. You know what I mean? Like if he were to win Best Supporting Actor for this, he'd be like, hey, don't you want to keep working with Marvel? 90 years, baby. Come on. I don't, or till you're 90. Sorry. But 90 years would be very impressive. I'd like to see the 160-year-old physique of Wolverine. But anyway.
That's method acting right there.
But no, I think that's completely, you guys are completely spot on. And I also think that this is another case of, similar to the discussion we had about The Bear a few weeks ago, maybe miscategorized because it's a two-hander. I don't think that he is a supporting actor in this movie. He's one of the two leads, I would say. Sure, it's the third of a Deadpool movies, but it's called Deadpool and Wolverine. They have pretty similar, I don't know. Wolverine probably has less screen time, but I don't know. I wouldn't say that he's a lesser part of the movie to me. No.
My Pollyanna take on this is kind of that maybe this is, whether it's Ryan Reynolds, Sean Levy, Disney, Feige, Marvel, whoever, pushing for this, kind of their acknowledgement of Hugh Jackman's commitment to the role over several decades. But if you're going to do that, he's such a storied actor in his own right, both stage and screen. Like, why not just go for maybe like a lifetime achievement kind of award, which that always brings up issues with people too, especially if they're on the younger side, which Hugh Jackman's not old. I think he's still in his 50s. And then it's like, well, have I achieved everything I can achieve? You know, then there's that kind of existential dread drama that it drums
we
up.
reached the existential dread part of the podcast early today.
Yeah, this is really early.
Check
for
it
that.
off on your bingo
Got us there
cards, kids. But that's kind of how I viewed it when I saw it. I think it's kind of a wild pull regardless, and I do think that whatever award categories the movie gets submitted for, it might end up sort of getting the Barbie treatment, and the difference between those two movies could not be more far, because Barbie was more like, we're doing this groundbreaking thing, and it's fresh, and it's different, and it's new, and it's never been seen before. And then Deadpool and Wolverine is, at the end of the day, a comic book movie. And yes, it was great, and yes, it was fun, and yes, it was wonderful. But that's kind of a concern I have of them being like, oh, it's getting Barbied, and it's like, no, let's not try to compare these two. But we'll see. That Golden Globes category for the box office is definitely something they've introduced to give crowd favorite movies some accolades. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's nice to say, hey, you were something that the people loved to see. And so here's an award for that, not a reward. They've been rewarded plenty with our billions of dollars. Here's an award to show that matters too.
Well, I am reminded too of Robert Downey Jr. here in the sense of that he took on this role in a Marvel Cinematic Universe for so long and was really known for that role, stepped away from it, took on his role in Oppenheimer, moved away and separated himself from the role that he had been playing for so long and had sort of become synonymous with, won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and now he's back in the fold, and he's going to be leading this new age of the Marvel Cinematic Universe on the other side. And to me, like, I see if this is truly a goal for Hugh Jackman, if like winning an Oscar is something, it's obviously important to everybody, but if this is like something that he really wants and really wants to go for, there's a path for that for someone like him. Like, he's earned this space in Hollywood where he's done a lot of things. He's shown a very wide variety of skill on the screen, from things like The Greatest Showman to playing Wolverine to all these types of things that he's done. So there's a path there. I mean, if that's something he wants to do. I mean, Downey took that role with the Oscar in mind. Like, and same with Cillian Murphy. Like, they knew they were going for it. Nolan, all of them. Like, they knew that was where this movie was going to lead, was for them to get an Oscar. And so you have to kind of consider that too, is like, if Hugh Jackman wants to win an Oscar, he can certainly go after that at some point. I just don't know if it's going to be for this film particularly. And I do want to mention real quick too that in the chat, TV Movie Guy asked, does it cost money to submit a film to the Oscars? It does not. As long as it's played in theaters and it's not like a streaming movie or a DVD or anything or whatever. DVD, what am I talking about? You get all the kids are like, what's a DVD?
Millennial talk.
But yeah, no, it does not cost anything. But if you want to be serious about it, you do have to lead a campaign, which will cost you a handful of millions of dollars, probably $3 to $5 million, to do a successful campaign to try to to try to schmooze enough people into being a serious contender. So there is a cost, I guess, associated with it, but there is not just a fee to submit a movie to the Oscars as long as it's had a theatrical run.
And on the note of EGOTs, because, we had to talk about that a couple weeks in a row, this would be the O in his EGOT, or an Oscar win would be his O, because he has the other three. So,
wow.
I mean, again, I'm with you guys. Like, I don't think this is him doing this, because he just doesn't seem like that kind of actor, but you never know at the end of the day.
Well, I do think the comparisons to Robert Downey Jr. are pretty appropriate, and just thinking about Oppenheimer and Haley, what you brought up about Barbie and Oppenheimer really driving the race last year, and we did have the Golden Globes, introduce that new category for box office. But for the last few years, the Oscars has really been talking about, do we want to do like most popular with the public kind of awards? And from what I understand, the viewership of last year's award ceremony saw an uptick in viewership. So as much as we're saying maybe this is coming from Ryan Reynolds, maybe this is coming from the Academy. Maybe they do want to have a high profile movie like Deadpool and Wolverine and a high profile actor like Hugh Jackman in the mix to get that viewership up.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to our next story. HBO released the first trailer for The Last of Us Season 2 last week with the melancholy musical theme from Pearl Jam in the background. The trailer shows Joel and Ellie's past catching up to them 5 years after the events of Season 1. We also see a lot of new cast members, including Danny Ramirez, Jeffrey Wright, and Catherine O'Hara. The trailer dropped on September 26th, the day of the virus outbreak in the original video game. Is anyone prepared for what comes next?
Oh, you're not prepared. If you think you are, you're not. If you were like the millions of people who watched The Last of Us Season 1, it was one of HBO's highest rated and most viewed shows. This is definitely a show that people are clamoring for and excited for, and I definitely count myself as one of them. I thought The Last of Us Season 1 was just on another level in terms of the creative force that it was. It did the thing that we've been wanting, if you've kind of been wanting like video game adaptations into media, they did the thing more perfectly than I've ever seen done that we've always asked for, which is that if you're going to do that, you want it to be really close to the source material, but you want it to feel distinct and be its own thing. And The Last of Us Season 1, if you played the game The Last of Us, the first one, you saw direct shots from that game. The things that made it great, the scenes and the lines and the scenery and all that stuff that made it great was there. But it also wasn't afraid to experiment a little bit with some of the world building and some of the character moments. And it ended up just being this like fantastic package of a show that left people asking questions after Season 1. And so this trailer, when it dropped last week, was hotly anticipated. People wanted to see, especially people, and again, like we're not talking any spoilers for The Last of Us 2 if you've played the game. Like I've played the game, Scotty, I know you've played the game, so we kind of know where this is going. But again, like a lot of people haven't. They're experiencing this world for the first time, and so we're not going to spoil anything or even hint at anything. But when this trailer came out, what I was really interested in as someone who played the second game, because the second game is substantially longer than the first game, is I was wondering like how is this going to work in terms of parsing it up. The first game mirrors the first movie. I mean, down to the minute. Like it ends in the exact same way as the first game. But the second game just probably can't squeeze into a second season. It just wouldn't work. There's too much going on. The storylines are too long, and there's too many things that you have to deal with in that second game. And so to me, I was trying to look for that. Like, where is this going to cut? Where are we going to see it cut off, because we would assume that this will have to be at least a season 3 at some point. And so I think we got a pretty good idea of that out of the trailer. Personally, like I think I at least kind of walked away thinking like, all right, I know where this is going. I know where this is going to cut off. But what was encouraging and cool was to see the character of Caitlin Dever, who popped up in here as a character called Abby from The Last of Us Part 2, which plays a pivotal role in that story. And video game people who are more hardcore are like, she doesn't really look like a character. I could care less about that stuff. That does not bother me at all. I just think that bringing that character to the screen is going to be really important for the narrative here. So overall, I thought the trailer was fantastic. I was already going to think it was fantastic. I was going to be biased no matter what. But I would encourage people, if you are curious about this show, check out that first season. Like get in and take a look at it, because it's probably not what you're expecting, and I think you'll walk away being very, very interested in a season 2. But yeah, I'm really excited for this, and I thought the trailer just nailed the aesthetic, the drama, the consequences that we're going to have to deal with was from season 1, which are really heavy and not resolved, and like how is all of that going to come together in this second chapter. So I'm expecting a lot from it, and I think the trailer really delivered in piquing everybody's interest.
Completely agree. And you, Jay, this show is the show that brought us together as podcasters. We had a podcast about this last year, and I got to know Jay doing that. That was a lot of fun. And it's just such a good show. You've played all the games. I have not, and I gotta say, the first season blew me away with the way the narrative ended up going. Completely unexpected, and in the end couldn't have ended any other way. At the same time, it's kind of a perfect narrative. I love it, and I love to know that we get something that people like yourself talk so highly of the second game and the narrative there too. So I'm really, really pumped for season 2. And this trailer is just, the mood is there. It's very, 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 very emotional. And also tells me nothing about what's going on.
Yes.
I know nothing. Like I'm sure you playing the game are like, oh yeah, that character's there. That you know the whole narrative, but like as someone who doesn't know, the characters are some of the characters from the first season are there, but that's all I really know. Yeah. There's zombies in it. That's about it. I know nothing else. It looks great.
I'm glad you went, because I was really curious about that. Like Jay has mentioned, I have played the games, so I was curious what someone's perspective is on this trailer, having not played the game. Like, even if you played the first game, maybe didn't play the second game, saw the first season, what did you think of this trailer? Because to your point, it really does not reveal a lot. It is really just setting a mood. And as we said, that use of Pearl Jam, I think it captured the perfect mood, a very melancholic mood, reflective kind of mood. Because, again, this is going to be difficult to talk about, being wary of spoilers. And I want to be wary of spoilers for season 1 too, because it hasn't even been out a full 2 years. So,
yeah.
But if you know how that ended, reflective is certainly an appropriate tone for this. So that being said, Matt, to your point, there are characters that I recognize, characters that I don't recognize. Chiefly, I'm very interested to see how Catherine O'Hara factors in, especially the character that she's talking to and the setting that it seems to be in there. But Jess Kamai said in the chat, whoa, 5 years is a big time jump. And I echo that sentiment as well. Like, I believe that's in keeping with the game as well, but just thinking about Bella Ramsey, playing the 14-year-old version of Ellie, and now she's going to be aged up 5 years. She is, I think she's like 21, 22, somewhere in that range, but she does skew younger. So she's a hell of an actress. I think she has the ability to, lend the gravitas that's going to be necessary for the journey that character is going to be on. But we only got the smallest snippet of some of the other characters, but I just wanted to call out Isabella Merced. She has a hell of an agent, Madam Web notwithstanding, but like Alien Romulus, she's in the DC stuff. But she has an interest in being anything high profile. Seems like she gets it. She was even in those one of the Transformers films back in the day.
Yeah, and it should be said too that The Last of Us 2, the game, and again I won't say why, but The Last of Us 2, the game, inspired a lot of conversation, from a lot of people, and it was divisive. I mean, it was a divisive game, probably one of the most divisive games ever. I fall on the side that I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant thing of storytelling, and I think it like when that comes to the screen, I think that conversation will continue again. Like the divisiveness of the second game will come back, but I think it's a good divisiveness. Like ultimately, I think the conversation there. I think it'll drown out any of the negativity surrounding that game, which was, I don't think, warranted at all. So I'm interested, and again, we'll talk about it when that season's over, or whatever. We'll talk about it more, or while that season's going on. But I think that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on as we roll into The Last of Us Part 2 and Season 2 and wherever they cut it, because like I said, I don't think you're going to get that whole game in one season. So they'll cut it at some point, and finding that out and having those conversations about where they cut it it's going to be interesting.
I can't wait. All right, up next, The Hollywood Reporter learned that DC Studios is developing a villains-centric movie centered around the characters of Bane and Deathstroke. While no director has been selected yet, Captain America Brave New World writer Matthew Orton is working on the script. On the hero side, a new animated film was greenlit and will be called Dynamic Duo, focusing on Dick Grayson and Jason Todd as the Robins in their early years. The feature film will use what's called Momo animation, a blend of CGI, stop motion, and motion capture. DC's doing a lot right now. What do we think?
We think DC's doing a lot right now. Starting to feel like a little too much. I don't know. The villains movie, this is all we know, is that it's going to happen probably, and that Matthew Orton's working on the script. He kind of cut his teeth in this geek world doing some work on the Moon Knight series for Marvel, so he's not jumping ship, but it's kind of like back in the comic book days early when all the Marvel writers would go to DC and then they'd come back and such, and that still happens now. It's kind of funny to see it happening in the movie world too, that they're doing that. So those are two really popular Rogues Gallery characters, Bane and Deathstroke. Could be like a really fun, who knows what, slasher movie. That'd be hilarious, and I'd be down for it. The Dynamic Duo movie just broke today, and it's interesting. So, this movie is being created by Matt Reeves' production company, but it's not connected to anything Matt Reeves has done. It's being, it's just crazy.
More Batman that's not in the Batman universe.
As I'm reading it, I'm just kind of laughing at the wildness of this. There's a New Orleans-based animation company called Swaybox who is doing this animation style that they have pioneered, is what the article says. And it's this approach to puppetry, quote, is how Variety puts it. And that's that blend of the live-action mocap, the stop-motion, and CG. And I saw a clip of it, like, really fast. I found a video, and it kind of made me think most closely of like Coraline and that, which is stop motion, but that's kind of what it looked like to me just from a few seconds of watching it. And so Reeves is producing, the animation studio is producing, Gunn and Safran are producing, and then Michael Uslan is producing this movie, and he's produced every Batman movie that has ever existed. So there's a lot of hands in the kitchen on this one, and it's kind of interesting that Reeves seems to really want to lean into this animation stuff. He did the brand new Batman animated series that came out on Amazon this year, which I'm blanking on the name right at the second.
Cape Crusader.
Cape Crusader, which was super reminiscent of the original Batman, the animated series. So, and then at the same time, he's working on the second Batman, the Batman movie, and we've got the Penguin. And so here we are again talking about all these different factions in DC. You've got James Gunn's live-action DCU. You've got James Gunn's DCU animation, we think. You've got Matt Reeves' animated, not connected universe. You've got Matt Reeves' the Batman universe. Like, it's getting a little stressful. Like, reporting on it is starting to stress me out. I feel like I'm getting hives just talking about it because it's getting complicated. And not that it hasn't always been, but I'm starting to wonder if the fracture is just these two sides, and if so, I think that's okay, because then you've got like this side of Batman or DC, and you've got this side of DC. But what are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. What? Forgive me. You may have said this, Haley. Do we know what universe the Bane and Deathstroke movie is?
It just said DC Studios,
yeah,
which is kind of how this article was too.
We're assuming DCU, but it's unclear, and the article said that it was unclear if that means that Bane and Deathstroke are the main characters of the movie, or if that means that it's just a movie that has Bane and Deathstroke in it. You know, like it very well could be that Batman Brave and the Bold has Bane and Deathstroke, you know, like we just don't know. Now, it read to me personally that this was intended that it was like a movie about them, like it was a them-centered movie. But again, it's that is not a confirmed thing.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing I keep going back to. And, you know, watching the Penguin this week, and last week. I'm loving that show, and I'm like, the Matt Reeves Batman universe is where it's at to me. Like, I'm loving that, and I want more from that. I want more in that vein. And I'd like it to be connected. I love a connected universe, and they're starting to do that. It's like they have started off a universe. We say it all the time. These companies try to make good big universes, but we say all the time, just make a good movie and then build a universe from it. You know, that's what we've always said. It's kind of the and obviously Marvel started with 2 movies and then sort of picked a lane on the tone. But like, so many people try to go in and make I guess what I'm saying is they have made a really great movie with the Batman and then followed it up with a really great series, and now I'm like, oh man, this is starting to build a universe I'm really interested in. And James Gunn's like, now the DC universe is here. Like, I don't know what that's going to be like. Totally different. So yeah, it's strange times at DC.
Always.
The one aspect on the report for the Bane Deathstroke movie that makes me think it is its own thing and it's not connected to anything like Brave and the Bold is that they said there's no director attached, and we know that at this point in time, Andy Muschietti is still technically attached to the Brave and the Bold there. But I am reminded, I want to say back like circa 2016, it was like right, during the glut of superhero movies being, all the rage. We were talking about the Channing Tatum Gambit movie possibly coming out. And alongside that, there was an announcement that a Deathstroke solo film was being developed, and it was going to be directed by Gareth Evans, who did The Raid. And if you're familiar with the Raid movies, they are some of the best action movies to come out in the last decade or so. I guess it's been about a decade at this point, but in the last 10 years or so. So I was always really excited for that. Deathstroke is one of those characters that I've always had an affinity for. Back when I was, again, circa 2016, when I was actively reading comic books, going to the comic book shop every Wednesday to get the new comics, I was reading the Deathstroke solo run there. So I hope it goes the distance. He seems like he's one of those characters that there's a lot of interest behind, but he's never really had a big foray outside of like TV and video games. But hopefully this is his opportunity. Bane, on the other side, I think Bane has been a little oversaturated for when he debuted. He came out in the 90s. I'm going to kind of repeat myself here, but if you remember what I said about Venom kind of being a product of the 90s and the
how could we forget? Over the top. How could we forget?
Over the top. Yeah. Extreme 90s. Yeah, kind of.
The Kool-Aid Man version of superheroes.
We had an extended discussion after that episode about the Kool-Aid Man, and then
it's kind of that.
And then I posed the question: is the Kool-Aid Man the glass or the juice? To which
that's right.
I think he's the juice, but whatever.
We were
that back for the Spotify poll. But all that being said, Bane has had some good adaptations. I tend to actually like it when they lean into the comedy. I love him on Harley Quinn. We'll see how this villain movie shapes up there. I think it is interesting that they got Matthew Orton, who, Haley, to your point, going from Marvel to DC back and forth and whatnot, makes me think that they've seen something in Brave New World that they liked. So that just gets me that little bit more excited for that one. On the Robin side of things, Haley, I'm glad that you were able to provide so many details because, to your point, this news came out right before we started recording here, so I didn't know a lot about it, but. Hearing that style kind of looks like Coraline is encouraging to me, because when I heard the description, I was thinking maybe it was going to be something like Sin City or some of those Frank Miller adaptations. But I like the fact that it sounds like it's going to be like Coraline and Laika, because when you think about sidekicks, like the function that they actually served back in the day, they were supposed to be the conduit for young readers. Because you had, these adult characters, but they wanted characters that the kids could kind of like see themselves as. So thinking about the two Robins, if it's a movie like Coraline, which I know just celebrated its 15th anniversary, that is a film that is cherished by people because, at the time that it came out, a lot of young people were able to like make that their coming of age film. So if this Robin movie can do something similar, I'm on board for it. It's I'm not necessarily knocking down the doors for it, but I think it's cool.
I meant that the animation made me think of Coraline.
That's
Oh, okay. I didn't mean that the theme of the movie did necessarily.
I think it would be fitting. Batman's kind of a scary character, and you could see like younger figures kind of like looking up at their guardian figure and being like, "Oh, what does he do at nighttime?" Kind of scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially because Dick Grayson and Jason Todd go different ways.
True, very true, very true.
Yeah. the Bane and Deathstroke movie has got me thinking a little bit about the Sonyverse. Sorry to bring up the Sonyverse again, but
Sure.
No, I love it. Let's talk
Mark
about
it on your bingo cards.
people have been killing the Sonyverse for making Spider-Man villain movies with no Spider-Man for a while now. And I think, could this
People
movie
called Jay.
fall? No, people. I'm doing the finger quotes. People. And, I think a lot of people are saying it, but I think that I think that this has, and I hope it doesn't. I mean, I think I have a lot of hope for this DCU. I think it could be fun. I think, I like James Gunn's directing style. I think it could be a fun thing. All the Superman legacy stuff's really encouraging. But ultimately, I could see it falling into that trap a little bit of these movies not gaining traction, because sometimes Gunn does focus on smaller characters, and sometimes it really pays off. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example. Where he took these characters nobody knows about. I mean, Groot is literally a character. He's just a tree, and he says his name. And Gunn made him one of the most famous and recognizable Marvel characters in the world. So he can do that. He has an affinity for that. But again, I think whenever you're picking out smaller characters and you're trying to build a recognizably Batman villain movie, but you're not including Batman, which again we don't know if they are or not, but we're not including Batman. It's just, could it fall into that same trap, right, of the Sonyverse? And so I think it's something to kind of consider, is do people have an appetite for that, right? Do we have an appetite for villain movies about or particularly villains of characters that we are already established with, them getting their own movie? Right. And again, I don't have an answer to that question, but I think it's something to think about. And then if we're casting it, I mean, I feel like Dave Bautista's got to be Bane, right? I mean, and I know he's lost a lot of weight for a lot of these roles, but him and James Gunn are boys. He's already talked about wanting to be in the DCU. He doesn't look much like Dave Bautista anymore. I don't know if you've seen him recently.
Yeah,
he's undergone a transformation.
All right.
But I mean, I feel like it feels like a dead ringer to me if that's the way we're going with it.
Well, Timothy Olyphant was recently up for a DC role. If he's not going to be Green Lantern, I could see him as Deathstroke. I like it.
Yeah, I like it. We're cooking.
That's cool. Yeah. Jay, your point about the Sonyverse and making things without these main characters, you guys said that about the Penguin, and now the three of you went off and started podcasting about it, and I was the one that was like, that show's gonna rock, and it does. And so I think but we already have an established universe for the Penguin to work within, and so it's definitely. And that's the same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. That was part of a bigger whole. And that's why that worked so well, because they could tie it into the MCU. So we just don't know enough about what the DCU is going to be like. We know Matt Reeves' The Batman verse because it's kind of a known quantity now. We know what to expect quality-wise and writing-wise and kind of the aesthetic of that universe. We don't know yet what we're getting still with DCU. So it's going to be interesting. Not like a battle between them, because I don't think they see it that way at all, but it's going to be a little bit. And so how are they going to stack up against each other? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
And tying it back to what you said at the beginning, Matt, you make something good, we'll watch it and we'll talk about it. The Penguin's a perfect example of that. We watched it and we didn't anticipate podcasting about it, and we walked away being like, this show's awesome, we need to talk about it. And a lot of people have done that. There's a lot of conversation about the Penguin. So at the end of the day, it's not like we are all, huge Matt Reeves, the Batman people. I mean, we all liked that movie, but we weren't just necessarily being like, please give us the Penguin. But then it came out and there was a lot of push behind it, and we believe in it, and we started watching it. We're like, we like it, and we're in. So I mean, you make a good movie, people are going to listen. It's just what does that movie look like, and what's the elements of it? But I think the pieces are there, and I don't think people are going to just turn it off because it's a Batman villain movie with no Batman. But it's just got that one more hurdle it's got to jump, right, to convince people to come see it.
It's interesting because we talk about the Sonyverse and how someone was just talking about that these villain movies without their hero in them, but it's interesting because we've had two great successes so far with the Penguin and the Joker for DC, and they're two, and Harley Quinn for that matter. These are villain stories, and for some reason DC is pulling it off and Sony is failing miserably at it. Just kind of an interesting thing.
Still got Craven coming.
It's true.
He's gonna save it.
Hope springs eternal, baby.
Clip that for December, please.
Morbius 2 and Craven.
Yes.
And for some reason, Michael Keaton's there. Michael Keaton's like, I got beamed over from another universe. Like, what are you doing here? Who's this guy?
How dare you invoke Morbius too? It's so evil.
It's Morbin time, part 2.
If they ever create that, finally Sinister Six movie or whatever with all of them finally meeting up, it's like, just because Morbius has been so panned, it's going to be like, Morbius is going to be like, hey guys, meet. I gotta go.
Yeah, no, that Sinister
the
Six.
first 5 minutes.
The Sinister Six with Morbius is cursed.
They'll have him break the fourth wall, and they'll be like Deadpool, you know.
Okay. Well, we have a Patreon, you guys. If you like this show, we have a Patreon, and we got also the show isn't over. We got lots more to go, lots more lightning round stuff, but. If you like it and you want to check it out and support it, it's patreon.com/multiverse newscast, and you can throw us $4 a month, and it keeps the show going, and it keeps us growing, and hopefully being able to do more and more of this as the years go on for Multiverse News. Patreon.com/multiverse newscast. We would love to have you over there, and we do various things with polls and
not those kind of polls.
Yeah, no, I dance on poles.
It's not that kind of Patreon, all right? You gotta pay for the secret tier for that stuff.
Let's put out a poll and see if they want the polls. Okay, well, we'll be right back with the Spotify, our last week's Spotify poll and our lightning round after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. When you last left us, we said we'd do the Spotify poll, and we're going to do it. Last week, we asked, which 2025 MCU movie is most exciting to you? We had 15.3% of you said Brave New World, 35.6% of you said Thunderbolts, and 49.2% said Fantastic Four. What do you guys think of that breakdown?
I think it went the way I expected it. Yeah. If you asked me to draw that up beforehand, that's probably pretty similar to what I'd say.
I think it's interesting because so much of what we talk about is continuations of characters and wanting to see things finally pay off. And I think Thunderbolts and Brave New World are going to do that. But this makes it clear to me that our audience, at least, is very hungry for new, hungry for some new energy to be infused into the MCU. So that's what I found interesting about it, I guess.
I think the casting of the Fantastic Four just infused enthusiasm into people because it's these names that people really love, and they seem like they already have good chemistry, and plus the Fantastic Four is just so, lauded and loved, and people want to see it succeed.
And stuff we've seen about it, it's wacky, it's 60s, it's like futuristic. Like I think people are just hungry for that kind of like change up, like something new and exciting and fresh and different universe, and to me that's why it's the most exciting to me, because it just feels like the most blank canvas of any of the upcoming MCU movies.
I agree completely. Love it. All right, well, now we're going to get into our lightning round. This is where I'm going to read a story, and we're all going to claim that story by shouting out our name. First one to claim it gets to respond, and once per lightning round we get a rebuttal, kind of a way to get through lots of stories quickly. Maggie Smith, the 2-time Oscar and 4-time Emmy winner, best known for her work in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, Harry Potter, and Downton Abbey, has died. She was 89.
Haley, this one hurts. Every time one of our childhood actors that we grew up with dies, it's sad, but there's something special about Maggie Smith, and her dying is just like really sad. Like it actually hit me in a way that a lot of these people that have died recently just hadn't. And I remember her first from The Secret Garden. That's the first movie I remember seeing her in. She plays kind of the mean caretaker lady, but at the end her heart softens, and she's crying on the stairs with that kid's underwear, and like that's just like imprinted in my mind, right? But I mean, what a freaking legend on stage, on screen, in real life. If you watch interview clips of her, she was so funny, so smart, so witty. And I know that a lot of things that I saw after she died were about like Harry Potter and Downton Abbey, but she has a body of work that is just almost unrivaled. And so she was supposed to live forever, and it's not okay that she didn't, but I hope that she's resting in peace and laughing at all of us being sad that she's dead, because that seems like something she would do.
Murder, She Wrote will be what I recognize her from first and foremost. Always.
Good
My grandma
pull.
watched Murder, She Wrote religiously. Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, wow. All right. Oscar nominee Tim Roth has become the latest high-profile name to join the cast of Netflix's Peaky Blinders movie and will join Cillian Murphy as well as Rebecca Ferguson and Barry Keoghan. Matt, I have never seen Peaky Blinders, but everything I keep hearing about this makes me want to see all of it before this movie comes out. And Tim Roth's edition might be like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I might have to go dive into Peaky Blinders because I love Tim Roth so much. And all these actors are great. And just I just love a movie where, like, I love a revival that is based on, like, fans loving the thing. And the fact that Cillian Murphy kind of started on the show or had a run on the show and is now coming back as a big star. It's just a cool thing. Cool vibe.
Never forget that it was Margot Robbie that asked if it would happen. That woman is in charge of so many things.
It just started production this week, so it's fresh. Just getting started on it, so you got time if you want to catch up.
All right, I think I might have to. I don't know how many seasons there are. Let me check. All right. Variety has learned exclusively that Bill Hader and Duffy Boudreaux are teaming up to develop a comedy pilot script at HBO. The official logline for the untitled project states, "A woman in a small town has a big secret revealed." Hader and Boudreaux will serve as co-writers and executive producers on the project. Previously, the two collaborated on HBO's Barry.
Scotty, you tell me the guys that created Barry are reuniting, you get me excited. But, there are really not a lot of details to go off of. We really only have this log line. A woman in a small town has a big secret. But I read the article, and, the other interesting aspect about Duffy and Bill's relationship is that apparently they grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma together. So with that setting, a small town, yes, as far as Barry goes, I think I thought the first 3 seasons were really strong. I think the 4th season lost the thread a little bit, but was still a satisfying conclusion. So there were certain aspects of that show that did kind of relish that small town, rural lifestyle. So I think it sounds like they're interested in revisiting that and lending their dark brand of mystery and comedy. So I'm on board for it.
Me too. Deadline has learned that Aaron Pierre and Stephen James have emerged as top choices to star alongside Kyle Chandler in Lanterns. The two are in conversations to star as Jon Stewart opposite Chandler's Hal Jordan, though sources caution that no offers have officially been made.
Jay, I would say that you'll probably get confirmation on who gets this role very soon, like maybe by the time you're listening to this. And it seems like all signs in the trades are pointing towards Aaron Pierre, that he is emerging as the front runner. I believe the article even said this, that he was essentially their top choice, and that he was close to a deal. And I think that makes sense. I mean, based on what we've seen out of him, it makes sense for him in this role, and I think it is exciting. I mean, I think he'll play that role very well. But yeah, I would say that you're gonna get confirmation very soon on this one, probably this week.
The guy who played Hawkman supposed to be?
We
Jon
were
Stewart?
talking about Aldous Hodge potentially being in the mix back when we were talking about Brolin, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's this
thought that was
ebb
I think they
and
want to go
flow.
younger.
Yeah, it's this ebb and flow that we kind of have seen with DC. Is we see some names come out, and then we see other names come out, and I mean, hey, by the time you listen to this, they might be like, it's this guy instead, and it's not even either of these two guys. It's just at the end of the day, like you ended that with, we don't really have anything certain yet. These deals can fall apart. They can get backtracked and put somebody else in. I mean, that stuff happens, so nothing is set in stone. But I would say we'll know pretty soon.
I do think it's interesting and possibly telling the fact that, like, the priority of the casting here, the fact that we got Hal Jordan was the priority. They wanted to make sure they got Hal Jordan right first and make sure whoever is going to play Jon Stewart has that chemistry with him. So for all intents and purposes, as we discuss, it sounds like this is going to be a passing of the ring, not the torch in this instance, a passing of the lantern. But even in the greater DCU, thinking about the fact that we know that, who's playing Guy Gardner, frequent gun collaborator, why can't I think of his name?
Nathan Fillion.
Nathan Fillion, thank you. So it does make me wonder: is Jon Stewart going to be our Green Lantern? Is he going to be the one with the focus in this DCU? Because I am not familiar with either of these performers. It does sound like Pierre is the more established one, so it makes sense that he's the front runner. But not familiar with either of these guys' work, so hopefully this helps them become a household name.
Yeah, I would imagine you would want that character to play. Nothing against Nathan Fillion, but like I would imagine you would want that character to play the future of the Green Lantern in this universe. You would think that they want to bring all these characters together at some point for a Justice League film or something like that. So you're going to want a Green Lantern in that mix, and I would imagine it's whoever this person, the Jon Stewart, whoever ends up playing Jon Stewart will probably be your Justice League Green Lantern.
The Wild Robot took the #1 spot at the box office this weekend with a $35 million opening. Elsewhere, Francis Ford Coppola's $120 million self-financed Megalopolis tanked as expected, with a studio reported $4 million 3-day in 6th place and a D+ cinema score. Whew.
Scotty, excuse me while I pick the low-hanging fruit here. I did not see Megaflopolis this weekend. Like so many other people clearly did not.
Yeah, nobody did.
But I did go see The Wild Robot, and if you recall last week when I was talking about it in the context of Transformers 1, I was a little on the fence about it. Like, the word of mouth has been really strong. I thought I had a strong first trailer, but that second trailer really didn't do it for me. And I'm happy to report that the buzz is well earned. This is a beautiful film. I think people lauding it as the best film of 2020, animated film of 2024, is appropriate. It's right there with Inside Out 2. Might be better than Inside Out 2. Definitely made me cry more than Inside Out 2. Like, I cried multiple times. This is the most I've cried in an animated film since Coco.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, definitely worth your time. And I think we got some listener feedback. I think it was Gabby that wrote in and said she wasn't seeing Transformers 1, but she and a gang of families are going to see Wild Robot. So I think the $35 million that we're seeing, it makes sense. And I think this movie has the potential to go the distance. It'll have legs and be successful not only in the box office, but come awards time, I think it's going to be a real contender.
Families hear from other families on what they want to take their kids to go see. I mean, it's most of the time, it's not really families looking at the marketing and being like, let's go see that. It's them hearing on second and third weekend, like, we saw this and it was awesome, you should take your kids. And that seems to be happening with The Wild Robot. It seems to be one of those ones that's getting a lot of buzz among family circles, and people are telling their friends who have kids, take your kids. And it's got an A cinema score for a reason. It'll continue to have a great box office.
I do want to throw out a little tiny but that I'm not surprised that Megalopolis did poorly, because all I've heard about it is that it's a $120 million self-funded project. Like, I don't know anything. I haven't really known anything about the project itself. And until this week, I saw the first trailer that I'd seen, and I didn't seek one out. So, that's on me, I guess. But
well, they took the first one.
$120 million. It couldn't market it. It didn't have a budget.
They had to take the first one down because of the AI scandal or whatever, where they had the made up quotes that were generated by AI or whatever, and the people that were attributed to the quotes were like, "We didn't say that," so they had to take the trailer down. So not a great start.
I will say, when I finally saw a trailer for it, it looked visually unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I don't know what it's about even really, but like the visual language of it looks really interesting. So I kind of want to see it just to see if he's that passionate about it, what's going on with this. And, I wouldn't mind. And it has big names in it. And like I said, the visuals look cool. So who knows?
That's how I felt. Maybe then I was like, oh, I didn't know it came out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they marketed it well. Like, this thing, people say that when you spend $120 million on a movie, you've got to spend another $120 million on marketing. You got to basically double the budget to get a movie to do well. And I don't think he did that. I have not seen marketing for this movie. I think he was expecting his name and the buzz around him self-funding it might have done well, but it did not.
And it's got a great cast.
Yeah, huge cast. Great cast.
It just wasn't marketed. Period.
It's been mired with myriad issues, which we don't have to get into.
Yeah.
But
yes, it's bigger than the quotes from the trailer.
Okay,
it's bigger. There's a lot more going on with this movie that didn't do it any favors.
Okay. All right, Netflix's Black Mirror has revealed the cast list for season 7 of the series, which features newcomers as well as cast returning for the USS Callister sequel episode. The list includes Awkwafina, Emma Corrin, Paul Giamatti, Rashida Jones, Kristen Milioti, Issa Rae, and Harriet Walter, among many others.
Jay, the full cast list looks great. It's very long, so we did not include the whole thing. But Black Mirror is famous for pulling people into these very specific roles and pulling out big names for these one-off episodes. It is an anthology series. And as I've said this before on this podcast, but I would take the top 5 or 6 episodes of Black Mirror and put them up against anything. I think when it hits, it's genius. I mean, when it hits, it really hits all the right beats in terms of emotion and just like brilliant storytelling on some levels. But when it misses pretty hard too. Like there's a lot of forgettable episodes of Black Mirror mixed in with the really, really top shelf ones. But the cast list is encouraging. That USS Callister episode is great. To see it getting a sequel is cool. Kristen Milioti is stealing the show on The Penguin alongside Colin Farrell right now. So getting her back on the screen for this is exciting. But yeah, I think this is a good looking cast list for this next season of Black Mirror.
Lionsgate has dropped the first trailer for the upcoming John Wick spinoff from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. Starring Ana de Armas, the film will debut June 6, 2025.
Scotty, the next installment in unnecessarily long titles for us, right? I like this trailer for the most part. I am still a little concerned for this one. We know that Chad Stahelski came in to basically beef up the action sequences, which resulted, the movie was supposed to come out in June of last year and has been pushed to June of next year. So that being said, I liked what I saw visually. I think bringing in Ian McShane is a wise choice. He lends a lot of pedigree and gravitas. I am a little concerned about Ana de Armas, though. I love her. I think she's great. But there's been a few performances that she's gotten a little bit of flack for, and I noticed that even though she's the main character, she did not have, I don't even know she had a single line of dialogue. And maybe they're saving that for the movie, but it did concern me a little bit. But, jury's still out. This is just a first trailer. They still have the better part of a year for this thing. And John Wick is a universe and a franchise that I'm inherently interested in, even though I haven't seen The Continental yet.
Same. I feel that. Same.
Totally forgot about The Continental until you just said that.
I really like Ana de Armas a lot. She was so good in that Bond movie. She just stole the show in that, and this just seems like almost like they plucked her out of that movie to put her in this and gave her a really cool backstory. So I'm, again, like you said, she didn't speak, and I don't know what she's going to be like in the movie, but I just am excited for her to have. And spoiler alert for this movie, it's in the trailer. If you're not a trailer watcher, which I don't know if you'd listen to the show if you're not a trailer watcher, but John Wick appearing in the movie. That seems really fun because I'm assuming it's a little bit of a time shifting thing happening here because this movie seems to be telling her entire life story, but her getting to meet John Wick and us getting a scene with them together sounds like I almost wish I didn't know it was in the John Wick universe and it was just called The Ballerina, and I saw this trailer and I would have flipped out, they shouldn't have called it. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, it should have been in the title. All right. Well, up next, Netflix has formally greenlit East of Eden, a 7-episode limited series based on John Steinbeck's 1952 novel. Zoe Kazan is adapting the novel and will serve as co-showrunner with Jeb Stewart. The series will star Florence Pugh, Christopher Abbott, Mike Feist, and Hoon Lee.
Haley? This is a departure for Netflix, I feel like. Adapting a John Steinbeck novel. They haven't really been doing things like this, in my opinion. Maybe I'm not watching everything on Netflix, but this kind of historical epic type thing hasn't been their bag lately. So they got some strong names in the cast, but I've not read East of Eden. It's I know it's set in California, like a lot of Steinbeck's novels are, because that's where he was from. But yeah, interesting, kind of an interesting left turn for them.
Apple TV has released the first trailer for the second season of Shrinking, starring Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. The 12-episode season premieres October 16th, with 2 episodes, followed by 1 episode dropping each week until December 25th.
Haley, I have been excited for the second season of Shrinking, but the trailer made me feel like, yes, we're getting more of the same, but more story in season 2, and it ended with a great joke with Jason Segel making fun of Harrison Ford's voice being really deep. He's like, we're like Batman and Robin, and Harrison Ford says something like, I'm not gonna be Batman. He's like, that's what Batman would say, and it actually like made me laugh out loud, which Shrinking always makes me laugh out loud, and not everything these days does, so I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, it was great. He, with his best gravelly voice, he said something like, I need you to go away now. And
yeah.
He's like, that's exactly what Batman would say.
He did sound exactly like Batman.
It was really good. All right. Oh, and dropping it up until Christmas seems perfect. I feel like this is like a good show you can watch with your family or whatever around Christmas time if you're sitting around. It's a good show. Really good show. Micah Monroe, who starred earlier this year in the horror film Longlegs, has been cast to lead 20th Century's new take on the 1992 classic horror film Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Michelle Garza Cervera will direct, and Micah Bloomberg is penning the script.
Scotty? Yeah, the Scream Queen is back. Not that she ever really went anywhere. But no, I'm actually not familiar. I've heard of the Hand That Rocks the Cradle, but I'd never seen it. So when I was reading the article and got a little bit of context about what that 1992 film is actually like, I found myself a little disturbed. It's the wife of a sexual offender. He gets killed in the act, and then the wife goes on a like revenge murder spree. So I was like, this is some dark, twisted stuff. And apparently Micah Monroe is going to be playing the character that goes on the murder spree. So typically she's been our protagonist. She's been the one we're rooting for as our Scream Queen. So it'll be interesting to see in this adaptation. Again, not having seen the original film, I don't know what kind of perspective they use, but I have to imagine it with it being set in the 90s that the bad guy was probably the bad guy. But it'll be interesting to see if this is one of those movies where we're actually rooting for the bad guy this time around. They'll probably have to make some major changes to the story if that's the case, but we'll see.
I had no idea that's what that movie is about. I've heard of that movie my whole life and had no idea. Woo. Yeah. That sounds rough. All right. Deadline has learned that Alan Tudyk will make an appearance in James Gunn's Superman in an undisclosed role. Tudyk already is playing Dr. Phosphorus in Gunn's upcoming Max animated series Creature Commandos and voices Clayface in the Max animated series Harley Quinn.
Scotty? Alan Tudyk clearly has a lot of love for DC because even outside of this, he was appearing on the Doom Patrol, the first couple seasons of that. So I think he's one of those actors that I think he lends a lot of talent no matter what kind of role he's going to be fulfilling. If it's a voice role, if they want to put him in CGI, you just know he's going to give 110%. And even if it's a bit role, he's just going to be happy to be there. But all that being said, I'm going to plant my flag now. Red Tornado. And
that would
too
be
much
shocking.
Marvel.
Nice.
Red Tornado.
Yeah.
Calling it now.
I would think he'd be Dr. Phosphorus or something, right? Like, isn't that show supposed to be canon?
It's supposed to be connected,
right?
yeah. So
it's supposed to be pretty heavy on the prequel. I mean, I guess he's like a nuclear being. He probably doesn't age the same, but I think it's supposed to take place like decades before Superman. But yeah, you never know. I mean, they might try to pull a live action stunt or something like that with him.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Frank Grillo is going to be appearing as his character from Creatures Commando in the second season of Peacemaker, so there might be some time travel shenanigans at play here. But yeah, Dr. Phosphorus, that would make the most sense. That's Occam's razor, the path of least resistance, but I'm still saying Red Tornado.
Knowing that Peacemaker is the only show we know of that's like continuing into a different universe, and knowing that a character from Creature Commandos is going to appear in that, I feel like that's a really strong evidence that like Creature Commandos is going to be some sort of animated prequel that explains to us like geeks how the universe is shifted or something some sort of time travel. Like it will be just like I don't know if you guys have seen 2009 Star Trek probably 2009 Star Trek had a comic series that explained exactly what happened to cause someone to go back in time and create the Kelvin verse, which is like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek verse. And it kind of feels like that, like, okay, we're going to take the DC universe and change it, and here's what happened. And I don't know, total guess, but could be. Okay, Sci-Fi and USA Network's horror comedy series Chucky has been canceled after 3 seasons. Anybody seen Chucky?
Nah, I never watched it. I heard good things.
I'll talk about it.
Yeah,
I'll talk about it, Matt. I loved Chucky as a kid. I don't know why, but I really loved that little murderous doll. And for whatever reason, I never kept watching. Even like the first content I ever made in my life, the first thing was a me and my friends sat around and made like a Chucky like parody in our house, like with little me and David Robertson from DC on Screen were like playing with like a doll that was like a Chucky doll, but it was like a sincere one, like a good buddy doll or whatever. And like we were like making it do evil things around the house and filming it. So I loved this series as a kid, but for whatever reason, never stuck with me as an adult. It just seemed to go a weird way. But sad to see it go, having never watched it. I would have liked to have kept up because it's just something I liked as a kid. I think I fell off during all the like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky and all that. I just never got into it. Just seemed to like be too self-aware or something. The old stuff was like sort of weirdly sincere in that it was like, because it's about this guy who's like a voodoo magic guy who's transferring his soul, so he's weirdly like really evil on top of like the silliness of the doll. Like he could never get out of that damn doll, and I kind of loved it. All right. The Shawshank Redemption filmmaker Frank Darabont ended an 11-year retirement to direct 2 episodes of the final season of Stranger Things for Netflix. Darabont said, "What really dragged me out of retirement was that my wife and I really love the show. Our content now is so filled with horrible people doing horrible things for greedy reasons, but Stranger Things has so much heart. The positivity is something I really responded to."
Jay, yeah, this is really interesting. If you asked me what project is going to get the Shawshank Redemption director out of retirement, give me 100 guesses. I would have not guessed 2 episodes of Stranger Things. So he must have really liked this show. But man, the last season of Stranger Things is really shaping up to be something gigantic, maybe bigger than anything we've ever seen on streaming before, because it is... To me, it's like the streaming show. You know, it's like the one that we really binged and really like made Netflix kind of get to the levels Netflix is at. To me, it's their most popular show, and I don't even know if anything comes close to the heights that it's achieved in terms of like the numbers that it's done. And so this last season that we got coming up, it's going to be huge. We've already heard from the actors involved that the episodes are going to be long. They're going to be basically a movie per episode, and they're bringing in all kinds of talent to direct this thing. So it's shaping up, and I think the more we hear about it, the more interesting it gets.
Absolutely. I will say, you mentioned thinking this was crazy to bring him out of retirement, but Darabont also did the first season and a half of Walking Dead, which I thought was really great.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best era of Walking Dead.
It is,
and it set that show up. Those characters that he created in the first season and a half are the characters that like keep people coming back to the 6 spin-offs they're making now. And so that's sort of the same sort of horror show. And at that point, it was a very... Walking Dead, as it continues, becomes a more cynical show about people being the enemy. But at that point, it was still about the walkers are the enemy and the humans are trying to survive and be together. And I think it's interesting. He says this about the show's positivity and the cynical reasons and greedy people, because that's where, when he left the show, that's where the show kind of went to. And so it's kind of interesting. I wonder if he like was pushing in another direction or something. But I think this is really, really great for Stranger Things. As long as they can keep the same energy, because I do think Darabont's energy and Stranger Things' energy is very different. But he's a hugely amazing, competent director, so I'm assuming he can make that work. Yeah. All right. Well, that is our news for the day. Let's go around and tell people where they can find you online. Haley Hobbs.
Yes, Brian and I are back into Secret Wars read-through coverage, so we're having fun bouncing around Battle World, so check that out. And then
Source
mark your
pages.
calendars. What did I say?
You just said Brian and I. I was just letting you just make sure you threw out the name of the
On
podcast.
Source Pages. Our podcast. Please go follow us. And then mark your calendars for October 20th. Ashley and I are going to watch Tarot on Hate Watch. That'll be our Halloween episode. And if you're worried about being scared, like I said to somebody in the chat, we'll be yapping over it, so it'll be fine.
Sweet. All right, and Jay Scotty.
Yeah, over on Animation Deliberation, we just dropped our Season 1, Season 2 coverage of Vox Machina in preparation for Season 3, which airs October 3rd, so literally right around the corner. And then over on Bingers Assemble, Ashley Coffin and I covered 2019's Joker in preparation for Joker Folie à Deux. So go check it out wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah. And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, well, weekly I'm at Commute the Podcast, as usual, where you can learn interesting things in 20 minutes on your way to work. And then join Matt and Jay Scotty and I over on Always Watching. We're watching The Penguin. We've covered the first 2 episodes, and we'll have a little bit of our rotating panels. Zuhair Ali's probably going to get involved at some point, and we'll be kind of in and out. So we'll have people covering that show. So if you're watching The Penguin or if you're thinking about starting it, hop on the train with us. Let's watch it together.
Yeah, can't recommend it enough. Great show. And yeah, Always Watching is that podcast where we're just covering whatever TV shows strike our fancy, basically. And that one did. So yeah, Always Watching. And yeah, check me out on Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. We're doing Agatha right now. And so it's just a really, really great time to be a geeky fan and watching Agatha and the Penguin every week. And I'm enjoying Rings of Power. It's been fun.
I still haven't started it yet.
Defeated.
I just haven't started it yet. I keep
I'm
looking
a
at that
few
first
weeks
episode.
behind.
I'm like 77 minutes.
It looks like
It's
it picked up.
10:30.
I'm behind, though.
Oh, yeah. This last episode was pretty
I'm behind
solid.
on
I watched
a
that
lot of shows.
this morning. Cool. Well, we'll be back with lots more Multiverse news next week. After this. Next week. Bye. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, thanks for listening to Multiverse News, or watching it, or whatever you're doing, eyeballs or ear holes, whichever thing. We do this show every week, and we appreciate you listening. StrandedPanda.com is where you can find all of our podcasts, and thank you for listening. Check us out wherever you get podcasts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the little bell icon, whatever you have on whatever service you're doing. Rate us, like us. We're really thirsty. That's what I'm saying.